87% of new real estate agents leave the business within 5 years. This is a crazy stat. And the crazy thing is to think about, I could have been one of them. And not because I failed, not because I didn't truly believe that I had what it was going to take, but because I didn't treat at the very beginning of getting into business of real estate like a business. So here's everything I would do differently if I started over, right? There's a handful of things that I would just redo. The first thing is I would, from the get-go, do an even better job with picking up my phone, right? So I got into real estate over 12 years ago, and I would have been even quicker about, hey, how can I get on the phone and talk to more people sooner? Call your sphere, right? Before you're ready. Because the reality is, they're the people that you need to know, right? And we'll talk about that. 2 is I would have done a lot more on getting onto social media or get that out quicker, right? Especially if I was starting over now, that would be my thing. How do I, on social media, let people know and have them see the journey that I'm doing? The next one would be make sure I have my CRM in a spot that I can really utilize it for long term. And we'll go into that. But so back to that first one, right? Because, right? I started out when I was doing this, I was still an elementary school teacher. I taught 6th grade, and I only could do it part-time, right? I had summer, which was amazing, and I really did a good job of why I succeeded was coming in every day right after school and having that time to do what I knew and where it was at. But I still didn't treat it as a business from the get-go on building something at that higher level. So the cadence, right? We're going to go into the conversations. When you get into your real estate license, and what I would do if I was starting over is I would realize that the people that are in my phone, the people that are on my social media, the people that I have around me are all people. And the way the cycle of real estate works is on about every 7 to 10 years is when somebody buys or sells, right? That's when a transaction happens and is the most common aspect with it. So with that means that the stat is everybody in your database, if you had 1,000 people, that means that 6% of those 1,000 people would be buying or selling. 6% of 1,000, of course, is 60, right? So if you have 100 people, then you should have 6. Now it means how do you get in touch with them and do that? And that right there is really where I've noticed that a lot of people don't start and build enough with the relationships they already have, right? You already most likely have enough people in your database if you take the time and are there with them. And that's kind of where I wanted to make that point. And if I was starting over, I would want to really utilize that and go out and be with those people, right? First way is by phone calls, right? Phone calls are one way that you can get in touch with them and celebrate the fact that you got your real estate agent. I was even challenging another new agent just barely to, call and celebrate that they passed the test to get their real estate license, and that's what they're doing next, right? That right there could be the right move for you to get even faster on that whole momentum of talking with people, right? Because your sphere should always be first. Out of all the different business models we talk about, all the things that you can choose, your sphere, the people that you know, already have built trust with you to some degree. And people like to do business with people that they like, trust, and know, right? Know, like, and trust. So how can you go through that process of being with more people who know, like, and trust you? The next thing is, as a real estate agent, that's your sphere. Those are the people that you want to start with. But it's also realizing that you're running a business, which means you have to focus on what the most important things are. And the reality is you have 5 things as a real estate agent that are your most important in your top 20%. The first one is lead generation. Lead generation is what we're talking about already, right? You have people, talk with them, you need to be able to earn their trust in order for them to say, I like this guy, right? I want to work with them. 2, you need to get really good, and this is where that last point comes in that we were talking about, the CRM, and it's because of lead follow-up. So your second one is lead follow-up. This one's really important because that's where you make the money. You make the money by following up with people, helping them. You know what they want, you follow up with them, you give them value and what they need, right? And then that third one of those 5 is appointments. You need to be having conversations that are also driving you to need to follow up with the right things to be able to get you in touch with them so you can sit down, ideally face-to-face over Zoom, to be able to give them what the next steps are. That's going to be that huge part of building that much rapport, that much of what you need to do, and that much where you're wanting to help them go, right? And then 4, negotiation. This is going to be the one that takes you time of being around the right people, reading the right books, and practicing. But this is your big thing as a real estate agent that you need to get good at, is negotiation. So dive into that, figure that out, and that's going to be one of those things that later will propel you to be an even better agent for the people around you. And that 5th one is script practice, or sharpening your skills. Right? If you can make sure you're continuing to sharpen that axe, sharpen your skills, and that will take you even farther, right? You've probably heard of the thing of, Abraham Lincoln saying that I would rather take the first bit of time sharpening my axe rather than having a dull axe to hack down the tree, right? If I had to cut down a tree as fast as possible. So, but those are the 5. And the reason I bring that up is, that very first one that we said was lead generation. Right? And your sphere is going to be that first one that you do, and getting into that cadence of what that looks like next is what's going to be important, right? And the great part is your sphere can be contacted through calls, like we're saying, doing more with social media, letting them see that you're an agent and that you're doing things, right? Have it where you're celebrating the fact that you passed your test. Having it where you are showing what you're learning, that you're in class, that what does your day look like, right? Really going through that journey and helping them, giving the information that you learn. Like, for example, did you know that you don't need 20% to go buy a house? Right? What are those things that you can do to showcase yourself? And then, like I said, that third one that we were talking about was the CRM, which is really going to help you with the lead follow-up of really delivering at the high level. One of the systems that I really like as a business owner, knowing that if your sphere is going to be something that you choose to take care of and move forward at that next high level, is this method called the DTD2. It gives you the cadence of staying in touch with your people in your database on a quarterly basis. So what the DTD2 is that every single quarter is a certain amount of weeks, which works perfectly to divide the alphabet and have 2 letters per week, right? 13 weeks, 2 letters per week, and then you call everyone with those last names. So for example, if it was A and W, I would then go and I would call everyone with the last name of A something, right? Anderson or whatever, right? And then I would go and call everyone with W, right? So that would be then my whole rhythm after I get through that whole first batch. So if I had 90 days going back in time of what I would do, I would have sat down, I would have mapped out and said, all right, I need to go through all of my different things for social media, post that I'm doing this. Anybody who likes that post, make sure to reach out right away to them, and then reach out and get to know them at a higher level, right? Everybody in my social media and in my phone, make sure that they're in my CRM and I call them all. Call them all that first time. Celebrate, get to know them, use, I would say, the Ford method, right? So the Ford method is where a great tool for you to remember of what people like to talk about and help you with questions on asking those. But the Ford method, just to go through it simply, is, family, friends, occupation. So, right, Ford, F-O-R, is going to be recreation, and then last one, D, of dreams. People, those are great conversations for you to have with and be able to get to know where people are at. So I would go through everyone that first and second week if I could pull it off. If it takes me a whole month, it takes me a whole month. But how could I have gotten through that as fast as humanly possible? Then I would have gone through, while doing that, I would have set everyone up on the DTD2 method. Whew, it's always a tongue twister if you say it fast. But I would go through that, and I would tag everyone in my CRM with what week they would be, right? For A&W, I would have a tag for A&W, and I would just tag because that was their last name. And then I could then start systematically being able to stay in touch with my follow-up process with these people who not only trust me, but I have some form, I mean, that scale could be huge, right? Like, I would say my mom trusts me pretty well, and it could be over here also where I have, a random person that I met at this spot that I now know because of this, right? But they're all going to be in there, and I'm going to make sure that I'm reaching out at that level to build that relationship and deepen my trust with them, so that when the time is right and they go, yeah, that's me, I'm ready to buy, or I'm ready to sell, that they not only think, oh yeah, I was talking with Taylor about this, right? But they also will then be willing to then say, let's take that next step. So that's going to be the cadence. After that is then where I can now be in that spot where every quarter, every week, I have a certain amount of phone calls that I know I'm going to do. Ultimately, the goal is, with real estate, it's a contact sport. It's about talking with enough people in the right spots for them to say, I want to work with you and move forward. So, like I said, if I was a new agent, I would get on that train as fast as possible and build momentum. Like one of my friends told me, the game of real estate is kind of like if you were pushing a train. That first little bit, it takes a lot of effort. You have to push really hard on working on that. And then if you don't let up, it gets easier and easier because you've built momentum, right? And that's one thing I've noticed coaching a lot of agents in general, not even just new, is sometimes if you take your foot off the gas and come back to that stopping point, it takes a big amount of effort to get going again. So that's going to be that big part and what I would do different. But there are a few things, even from when I started to now, that I think are important to talk about as a new agent, right? For example, in 2026, there's this big thing called AI, right? I would also that's an advantage right now for a new agent. AI can help you, if you use it correctly, to have less of a learning curve and less of needing to know everything. Because if you have the relationship with people, you don't have to be the one that has all the answers. You have AI, you have hopefully a brokerage with a team who can help answer good questions. But you can be in that spot to really put yourself there. And the agents who pair themselves with the AI and understanding how to use it will go a lot farther faster and beat a lot of the competition in that way because, right? So that's going to be the big thing, right? And like I said at the very start, this needs to be a business. You need to think of this as a business, not a side hobby, not a side hustle, right? I was very lucky, and I'm glad that I had the opportunity to go from a part-time real estate agent to a full-time and commit to being a business owner in real estate, right? Using this as my vehicle to take me as far as I can. One thing I'd highly recommend is have it where when you get into real estate, have a mentor. Have somebody that you can go to, ask questions, have it where they hold you accountable and push you to that level that you're wanting, right? If you want to make $100,000, if you want to go and have a business that you can, choose what hours you work, choose and be around somebody who can not only be there and give you the systems, models, and tools to really be the CEO that you would want to be, right? But also be able to give you and set you up so that you can go as far and as fast as you would like, right? That's going to be the big thing, and I think it's very underrated on having the right people in your corner, right? I feel like a lot of people, and this is why I think it's an 87% I'm going to get out of this rate, is they don't treat it like a business. So they don't get in with coaches. They don't get in with mentors. They don't go surround themselves with the high enough of a level of a caliber of people to make sure that they're improving in that way as well. So that's my biggest thing, right? Go build. We can help you go from there, go even farther. If you want to scale, that's where it gets really fun, the next conversation. So really, to wrap this up, first off, let's have you be the CEO that you're going to be proud that you are your boss, right? If you're going to wake up every day and be like, this is my vehicle to build a business, let's make yourself proud. I think that that's going to be the best way to help you not be one of those 87% that gets out, right? So let's set you up in the right spot. If you've enjoyed this, if this is helpful at all, make sure to like, comment below of where you're at and where you're doing real estate, and subscribe, and we'll see you for more information to help you get farther faster with us than you could without us. See ya.